I'm going to show you a picture of what the B-24 looks like. That's our Bayflower. Yay! They made over 18,000 of these planes flew in the war. Far more than any other plane that we've made, fighter or bomber. They made more 24s. And the reason for making so many, they used it extensively in the South Pacific. And when we get on to some of this presentation, I can show you that more. I mean, not quite. Let's see. We're talking here about World War II, and it started really getting ready for the war in the 30s. We had in 1941 Pearl Harbor on December 7th, which really got us into it. I became a member of the Air Cadets. I was in college in '42, and I decided I had to go into service, and if I was going to go in, I was going to go in and do something that I would want to do rather than something they wanted me to do. So I enlisted on November 11th, 1942 in the Air Cadets and went through the cadet program, became an aerial navigator. We had our crew set up in Lincoln, Nebraska. Colorado Springs, Colorado, Peterson Field, Colorado Springs. Our crew trained together, and then we went through Lincoln, Nebraska, and on over to Italy. We joined there the 456th Bomb Group, so the 15th Air Force. In the 1930s, the whole world was changing. It was exactly chaos in various areas. Japan occupied Manchuria. Italy occupied Ethiopia. Hitler's Nazi Party came into full power by 36. By 38, 39, they're going into Austria and Hungary and other parts. September 1, 1939, Germany attacked Poland. Cruise, that was the best because it brought them back. One of the big things that's different, and this is why the B-24 was used so much, it had a much longer range. And when you look at the Pacific, it's a hell of a long distance. Hiding down in here as a navigator and bombardier. We have the various gunners through this plane. This is what the cockpit of the plane looked like. And the planes today are a heck of a lot more complex than that. This is a nose turret area. Early in the war, the B-24 didn't have a turret, it had a fixed gun in the nose. And the Germans were attacked with the daylights out of the 24 formations until they added the nose gun in, and that changed the whole atmosphere. So here's your nose gun again. Down here's where I would be hiding out with the bombardier in this part of the plane. Later on, they put a bubble up here and up here, which made one big improvement in seeing where you were going. This is our famous Northern bomb site. And this is what the bomb bay looked like. Here's a catwalk you could walk between. Somehow or other, you don't see it, but the bombs over here, over here. And we could carry up to 6,000 pounds of bombs. That's about it. The waist gunner, you had a fixed position where your machine gun would be held, and then the waist gunner would be on either side of the plane. You had a ball turret, which was one big improvement in the defense of the B-24s when they added that ball turret in. This is a radio operator up on the deck. He's right behind the pilot. I showed one picture of the stars to tell you, you go through navigation school and you do celestial navigation and everything. And the reason you do it probably is to get you on one flight. So we went from Gander, Newfoundland to Lodge's Field in the Azores, and we did that as a result of my making readings on the various stars. And what it would do is you'd always take the pole star, because that gave you your latitude. And then you go about 120 degrees in either direction, so that when you got your reading from that, you would make a triangle, and you're in the middle of the triangle. So that told you how we were there. Well, we must have made it because I got back. But these, the belt of Orion, the twins here, and Capella, there's a line that went right through, and you had this whole circle, and that was one of the greatest parts of all the stars groups that do. See right here? That's the Azores. So we had to go from here and land up to here, and we did that based on celestial. We didn't have all the things that they have nowadays. Here's friendly little Italy. I was stationed right here. Up here, there's a little island of Viz that I'll tell you about later. This was a typical area with the big pyramidal tents that you had. And on many of them, this is about the height of the sidewall, and we would raise them up as high as we could get. So actually we could stand here, and normally you couldn't stand inside the pyramidal with that. So this fellow's got a chair made out of crates from the bombs were transported in. We use those crates for everything. This is my crew again. How did we get a shower? Well, this is a Tokyo tank that the P-38s and P-51s would carry gasoline in. Well, we managed to get a few of these. We cleaned them all up. We had a system where it could go down through a little heater, and we had a shower there. In our particular tent, we had a run-in where we had a sink. It was quite nice. And the tent, we had a tile floor in our tent. We got that tile from a bombed out city in Italy, and people ahead of us fixed these things up quite nicely. As I'm going along, if anybody has a question at this point, you could interrupt me if I...
What was the fence around the tent for?
Pardon?
What was the fence for around the tent?
We didn't have one. I don't know. That was a picture that was taken out of an Air Force magazine. I don't remember seeing a fence around any tent.
Keep the dogs out.
Huh?
Keep the dogs out.
No, there weren't dogs running around the area. There could be young Italian boys and girls. I never saw an Italian girl running around there, but young Italian boys would be running around the area. They would shake the olive. We lived in an olive grove, so they'd shake the olive trees, and the olive would come down on you. You want to eat an olive right off a tree. You won't do it twice. Well, let's see. There must be something. Okay. And aircraft plants were one of the main targets we had. If you could knock the Luftwaffe out, then you didn't have them bombing the hell out of you or shooting down your planes. Submarine pens, this was the Royal Navy. We'd have the targets there. Transportation, we would try to knock out the railroad yards, especially any place where several trains would come together. I never got involved with the power station. There's we are. Oil was the main target that we were centered on, and the main thing we talked about for our there was a complex in Poland that made these three items in a place called Black Hammer North and South. They had a big refineries. A typical Air Force formation, you would have several bomb groups. And this would be one bomb group of about 40 planes. Alpha, Baker, Charlie, boxes, and they call this poor guy over here Taylor Charlie. He is really the end of it. So that we would go out of the Foggia area, we'd go all the way to Poland, into Czechoslovakia, over here to Ploesti. We had a couple of raids over southern France. Again, over these same areas. Ploesti was a place that gained all the fame. You may remember hearing about the low-level raid that Killer Kane and several others went on. They were about 300 or 400 feet off the ground on a Sunday morning. I think it was the 1st of August in '43. And they went over and bombed low level and knocked out something like 30-some-odd% of the refineries in Ploesti. And at that point, Ploesti was producing about 40% of all the oil for the whole German Army Air Force base. So it was a major target to knock out. And this was the first real raid on any factory or anything that got raided.
And how low was low level?
They were within, some of them were like 50 feet off the ground. They were there.
So Don, when they went and came into the target, they were mostly over water for a good part of it, right?
No. You were over Yugoslavia and Bulgaria and Romania. No, there was no way to get there from water. We had all this land there, and came over.
How many planes would go on a mission?
Depends on this raid, there was 150. Our normal Air Force formation out of Italy, we put in something like 400 planes. This is a look at the refineries in there. Standard Oil, American, Romana Americana, another American. Xenia was American. So there was something like 11 refineries in this whole Ploesti area, which was a little bit northwest of Bucharest. Oh, this was one of my early raids. Might as well get it all out. This was one of the first raids that I went on to the Magasoya outlet outside of Ploesti. And I was actually flying with a different pilot, Lieutenant Soldier. When the crew went overseas, the pilot went and trained with an experienced crew, and the gunners with another crew and like that. And I was off with this particular crew. But we put up about 330 planes at that time. We had these three groups. The 304th was what the bomb group that I was in. What's this? Is this the same one back again?
That's grade 18.
I'm not getting this.
No, you're doing it right.
Okay, this was the next day. And we had the B-17s flying with us that day. 2 more planes. Ploesti, we made 22 raids on it and tried to knock it out.
Who was the commanding general of the 15th Air Force?
Nathan Twining. This is Stoya Romana, one of the factories, and this is the pictures they took later. P-38s would come in low level and take pictures to see what we did. And this is a pretty good indication. We did a little bit of damage. This is what it would look like over a target area. There's a couple of B-24s and another one here. And these are shells that are going off, bursting in the air where we're flying. Oh, this gives you 278 guns protecting Ploesti, which you had some reason. All those master sergeants shooting those guns, and they know how to do it. So, what did we do? We had 20 raids in which the 15th Air Force was involved in. We had this famous B-38 low-level raid, and the low-level one that I talked about 1st of August, which we went before, and we lost 54. Well, I was off in my numbers on the planes that flew. But you can imagine, this is 5,479 aircraft flew over and bombed Ploesti. That's a couple. The 15th Air Force. I'm not sure what that number is. I think this is the number of people that we lost. Yeah, we lost 317. The numbers are a little bit, I can't tell you. this gives some idea of the amount of oil that they were producing at the West. We bomb them and they'd go down, they get back up production, we bomb them again, they go up and down. So this is all those levels. By the time the Russians took over, they were there.
Don, explain the difference between a raid and a sortie. You said 20 raids.
I think most of them refer to as a sortie, maybe one plane doing something. We generally call them raids. I never heard the term sortie used all the time I was overseas. We had raids and we put up around 300 planes most of the time. This is the loss. Initially, they started over here, and as the raids went on, this is the loss in production that they had. 1 million tons of oil produced in Florida destroyed. That's a couple of pounds. I want to show you this. When we went to Blackhammer, we're into Poland now. 700 plus, close to 800 miles out of Italy. We went all the way up here to bomb Blackhammer North, Blackhammer South, Odertal, and Maribor up here. But right along this river area, they were producing synthetic oil back in 1944. We know how to do it now if we wanted. We could use the same process that they did then. After Ploesti, these are some of the main targets that I was involved in bombing. As I mentioned, my good old friend Blackhammer, Odertal, in Poland, German, Silesia. Vienna. This is the one that would strike terror into anybody in the 15th and 8th Air Forces that they were going to go under. Rux. Rux was the largest synthetic oil refinery in the world. And that was real heavily defended. Matter of fact, they built a installation like it off to the side of it to try to attract us to go to the bomb the wrong place. It was tough enough that if you didn't know what, you didn't watch what you're doing, you could be misled.
How much time would you have between missions?
Pardon?
How much time would they give you between missions?
24 hours. I don't know how they picked which crew was flying when. Back in August, from the end of July into the 1st September, got 22 of my 35 missions in. And we were flying practically every day. In fact, I was at the officers club, and I guess I could tell one of the medical doctors saw us over there, and we must have looked like we were pretty well tired out or whatever. But he came over and talked to us and found out what we were doing. So he decided, well, we were going to go to risk camp. So they sent us to the Isle of Capri. We were going the next day. This was one night. The next morning, we were packed up and off to the Isle of Capri. Anyway, Munich was quite something else. Tuskegee Airmen. One of the main reasons that I can stand here tonight was the protection the Tuskegee Airmen, the 332nd, gave us. And one of the things that General Green told his men is that your job is not to shoot down German planes. Your job is to protect the American planes that you're with. And if you have a shot, you aren't going to chase off after the Germans to get them, you stay with them. And they would stay right with us. So that a good many of us owe our lives to this group.
Is Chappie Daniels in that photo? Is Chappie Daniels in that photo?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that I have the names listed anywhere on that. This was one of the main publicity pictures they sent out. You know what this signifies? That's the 332nd Red Tails, P-51s. Here's a B-24, right? Why did I show this picture? We were pretty badly shot up one day. We dropped way out of formation. We were down a little level. And we were decided that we were too badly crippled. We wouldn't fly down the Italian side of the Adriatic because there was German airplanes over in Italy. So we would get down the Yugoslav side so that by the time we were about where we might cross over the Adriatic to Italy, terrible thunderheads and everything. There was an awful thunderstorm over Italy. And we were getting pretty low on gas. So we decided to go in a little island of Viz, which was an Air Force fighter strip with a 3,000-foot runway. So we need 5,000 feet to stop us. So when we went in, we had our gunners drop chutes out of both sides. The pilot told them just when to hit the chutes, and we stopped 25 feet from the end of the cliff. So I guess it worked out all right.
Don, are those holes in that vertical stabilizer up there? Is that a big hole?
This is part of the in here,
No, right where you were, right there.
that triangle?
Yeah.
That's part of the design on the plane.
Oh, okay.
You got a, what's it, a four-leaf clover and diamond. If I had a picture of the not the Spitfire, and if I had a picture of the Zero, and I were to add them in there, and I take the names off, I doubt if there's anybody here who could have told the difference. You know, those planes looking up there, you take the Messerschmitt 109, P-51 Mustang, you take those off, and look at those planes, boy, they look a lot alike. And one of the things that we had to be careful or train our gunners on, and we had to be aware of the 51s in the area flying around us so that they didn't start shooting at the wrong plane. This is an idea of the tonnage by targets from February 44 to April. So we did a tremendous amount on communication lines. Here, the oil refineries were way up there. Airdromes on down. So that's an idea of the number of tons that we would drop toward our time. We had 249 missions. Somebody asked about sorties. That'd be 7,272 planes flew on these 249 missions. 3,000 plus officers and non-commissioned officers. Non-commissioned officers would be the sergeants, the radio operator, our our flight engineer would be both non-commissioned officers. It cost this many men, 105 planes. And this is typical. How did I get that? No, I got that.
Let me get rid of that.
Our loss is 28%, pretty typical of both the Royal 8 and the 15. 28% of the crewmen that went up, not in any one rate, but over the length. Sure, we lost 28% of our men. Oh, this is just, I added this as a show. If anybody was interested, wanted to do any, this is quite a book. That's that Sunday raid, low-level raid. Leroy Truby did a tremendous job on that. I think that does it. Let me turn this off.
Well, I don't know if anybody wants to see any of the other slides. You may want to see.
Any questions or anything? Anybody want to go back over anything or whatever?
Now, can you give us a typical one mission where you can went through in the enemy aircraft and bombing and everything else? How does it actually be on some of those missions that you didn't know if you were going to come back or what? But can you kind of describe one mission for us?
Well, most of our raids were around 7 hours. And we would get our Air Force formation together over Italy. So you would start sending your planes up, you keep circling, you know, we had, I'm not sure how many airfields we had. I think we had 8 or 10 airfields there to get planes up there. But you keep sending the planes till you got 350 of them circling over Italy. Now you could go off. You don't join together out there, you got together over Italy. So then that you would start climbing up to altitude, and you never knew when the German fighter planes would be coming or not. Pilots on the lead planes would have communications with the 15th Air Force fighters and whatever. And if they wouldn't be talking unless the 15th Air Force fighters saw Luftwaffe planes coming at us. So they didn't communicate just to say they were doing that. If you would just go along regular fly, and you try to hold your formation the best you could. We'd get up somewhere around 27,000 feet. We get every inch we could get. We kept pushing, trying to get a little bit higher. Believe it or not, a few thousand feet made a hell of a difference in the aircraft accuracy. So that about 3 hours out, you were now over your target. And you would come in, we would all, in a formation, we would drop on the lead plane. If planes that would get hit or whatever, we lose planes almost every flight. Some of it get knocked out, and they would get down a low level and get back the best they could if they could even make it. But you would, generally we would be bombing, a good amount of our bombers would come in from the north, bombing to the southwest, and then we'd rally from there and head back home. Sometimes you might get knocked out. We had several flights where we were barely able to clear the Dinaric Alps, which is around 4,000 feet. So we had lost all that altitude. If you lose a couple engines or whatever, you no longer can keep your altitude. You're struggling to keep in flight as best you can, whatever.
Yeah. Were different air groups given the lead of the whole 300 planes? Or was the 304th always the lead?
No, yes. Twining somehow had it figured out on how he was going to have the planes go. But there'd generally be whatever lead group, and then you'd have, in the same diamond type of information, keep spreading out. So that we would have a wave of 300 planes flying off the lead.
Did each group have a different target in velocity? Or was everybody hitting the same target?
I am not sure. I know within our group, we would be, of the many refineries in Pulaski, we would be given one of the ones. This is the one you're going to.
That was the primary target.
So you got there, yes.
In one of the slides, you showed the ACAC going off below the planes.
Yep.
Were they using proximity fuses, time fuses, or altitude, or what?
I don't know. We often thought that they were all pretty darn good. They could get that flak up closer than we wanted.
Oh, so they were trying to get air bursts rather than a single shot into the plane.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be proximity then.
Yeah. Yeah. But we had one plane, 239. I was looking up my numbers the other day. 239 was a diurnal wind. And he landed it, and it was the hard stand that we were probably 300 feet from where it landed, where we were sleeping. And they want to come up and get us. We want you to see this. We went down, and the self-sealing oil tanks let loose. And whatever little oil was left was pouring out of that wing of that plane. They counted something like 270 holes in that wing.
Did you use many incendiaries on Pulaski?
Pardon?
Did you use many incendiaries on Pulaski?
I don't know. I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. We had 3 raids on Pulaski that I went on out of the 22. And planes that I was on, just regular bombs. Most of them were 1,000-pounders. But we did do a couple of incendiary raids on refineries up in Czechoslovakia. I couldn't tell you money in detail. Yes.
The picture you showed with the 11 different refinery areas, how many miles did that picture cover, would you say?
Say this again?
How big was the Pulaski grouping of refineries, big as the state?
Oh. I think that the refinery circle was something like 30 miles. Yep.
What was the altitude that you were bombing at?
We would generally try to be up around 27, 28,000.
27?
Huh?
27?
27, 28. We could get every inch we could get. Depending on the weather and everything, you could get a little more altitude. We also flew low-level. I was in on 4 low-level raids on southern France. Very early in my time, we bombed the San Rafael beachheads, that area 4 times early in my career. And that was low level. We were probably no more than 500 feet.
Wow. How high could the flag go? Would it reach 27,000?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Steve?
Yes.
I was with the Daredevil group in Egypt, and we repaired, overhauled, or rebuilt, whatever you want to call it, at least 40 B-24s from those raids. And they were in rough shape when they came to our base. I don't know how the hell they got off the ground in their base to fly at several hundred miles to ours. And then by the time they got through overhauling them and painting them, they were sent back to the States to sell war bombs. They had a drawing of the Mediterranean Sea and all the bomb runs, the crew members and everything, painted on the side of the plane. While the planes were at the base, crew members were sent to Tel Aviv to lounge at the beach until we finished their plane.
But we had, our engines on our plane were very good engines.
Were they Pratt Whitneys?
They were Pratt Whitneys. I couldn't tell you the exact identity, but they...
1830s.
We could fly on two engines, because we had it. One of the Ploesti raids, we lost a couple engines. We were on two engines, fairly clear in the Dinaric Alps. So we did.
I've read different things about the Norden bomb site. You know, some people saying how wonderful it was, and other places saying, well, you'd get close, but what was your experience with it?
Part of your problem gets to be, how good is something now in going into the development of the Norden bomb site? That was so superior to anything. And we could, the bombardiers were pretty smart guys. And they learned how to sort of compensate for whatever was going, so they knew what they were doing. And the bomb strike photos later on from just about any of the areas like Ploesti and like that showed that they did pretty well. For the technology of that day, you know, it was way over anything we had.
You mentioned you'd bomb at 27,000, 28,000 feet. Was that to avoid the flak, or was that to increase the accuracy?
Pardon?
You mentioned that you drop your bombs at 27,000, 28,000 feet. Was that to avoid the flak, or was that to increase the accuracy of the bombs?
We went up as high as we could get.
Right.
But
bomb load, you couldn't go any higher.
that's right. But you bombed in sort of a dive. We started 27. By the time we finished over the target, we were probably down around 25. And you would circle off and do whatever you did to get whatever planes. Some of your formations would get hit pretty bad, and you had to regroup as best you could. We had several that we would come in. We cleared the Dinaric Alps, and that was our prayer.
You were a navigator, so
Yes.
each plane had a navigator. So wouldn't they only need like one navigator?
Well, I gotta sit down. All the planes didn't have navigators. They might either have a navigator or a bombardier. Depends. We often flew either Able 1 or 2 or Baker 1 or 2. Our pilot was recognized as a real good pilot. I guess I had a halfway decent rating as a navigator. And so we were one of the lead crews a good amount of the time. But when you get hit, you know, you don't know what damage you have, and the plane might get knocked out of formation, and now you're praying that you're going to get home.
Did you have any other way other than celestial navigation to find your way? In other words,
Oh, well, the only time I used celestial navigation in the whole thing was flying the North Atlantic.
just on that one?
There wasn't any of the other things. Half of
good amount of the things that they now can do to guide one, they didn't have. All that we had was a sextant, not an octant, but a sextant. We had navigation charts. We were tied in on Greenwich Mean Time for the charts. So you'd get up and you'd take a fix on a star, the precise time, you calculate the speed line. Then you'd take another star, the speed line. You've already taken Polaris. You always took Polaris. That gives you your latitude right off.
Might as well have been on a sailing ship.
Pardon?
You might as well have been on a sailing ship.
You recognize that you're flying 250 miles an hour. You're not where you were very long. So you've got as small a triangle as you can get. Yeah, but what about your Boy Scout compass?
Question?
Yes.
On the, I think you said something about losing 2 engines on a mission. Did you lose them over the target, both of them, and how did you get back?
We limped back.
Limped back, but now you couldn't have stayed up with a formation.
Oh, no, you were knocked out of formation. So you lose a couple of, you couldn't stay with it.
And what about fighters after that?
You hoped that they didn't get you. Fortunately, by August of '44, the Luftwaffe was in pretty bad shape. Between what the 8th had done and the 15th, primarily the 8th, but they had knocked out a good amount of the Luftwaffe. Recognizing that in the early parts of the war, most of the Luftwaffe was going to be flying in bomb in Italy, or England. We didn't even have the 15th Air Force out there at that point. We came over on 15th of February of '45. So, you know, quite a long, 44 rather, 15th February '44. We came over. Yes.
Did you ever belong to the 12th Air Force?
No.
The 15th grew out of the 12th.
Pardon?
The 15th grew out of the 12th.
Yes, but I didn't get over there. I got over there the 12th and 13th of July of '44. So by then, the 12th is completely gone from there. Yes?
Okay. There were some questions on the flak before, and I know some people were probably involved in that deeply, but I just noticed on that slide there, did you notice that all the flak was in one location and it was lower than the 24th? It was below it. If you're not familiar with how flak operates, there were basically 2 ways they did it. One, they would find a predetermined box and all the guns would fire at once and hit at that altitude, and that's what that photo was. Another one was a trailing one where they would estimate and each one would just fire on their own. And if the flak was going along with you, that's what they were doing. There'd be an interval. If it was a box or a box barrage, there'd be an interval. There wouldn't be any flak, and then there'd be a big bunch of them. But if not, they were following along. There were 2 different ways, basically. They did have proximity fuses, but they tried to hit them in certain box sections. And all the time, you guys know, and I'm sure the pilots know, that you're changing altitude and course every couple of minutes or so that you're not where that box is going to be. So if you notice, they were just above it. And it may have varied in the 15th or other Air Forces, but basically...
I don't think the Royal Navy was doing that either. I don't think that they were changing altitude that much.
Well, not on the bomb run, but prior to that, a lot of the stuff was... At least that's what like I said. I wasn't there, but I've done a lot of research on that stuff. But that's the difference between the barrage and a following flak gun.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of that is press thinking that it was happening, not what we were actually doing. We held to get up every inch we could get. We might change directions, but we wouldn't give up any altitude. I never heard of anyone ever giving up altitude. You kept every foot of altitude you could get, and you would change directions to try to...
My cousin was one of the fighter pilots over there. He was saying what they were doing, a lot of raids. The German, prior to raid coming up, they would send a plane up, simulated what the altitude was, and give all the information down to Yak-Yak down below.
Don?
Yes.
If you were on a bombing mission and you were struck and lost engines before you got the target, would you just drop your bombs on any target just to give it up? You wouldn't go back to base with bombs?
Oh, no, we haven't, no. One of the reasons for saying that, some of the bombs, a good many of those bombs, had types of fuses on them. But you didn't want to land that damn plane with that bomb. We had a couple of instances where in the delayed action bombs, they could be delayed enough that you could get off and get there. But if something happened, we had one of the planes lost a couple engines. It was just over the Adriatic. It had to come back. You know, I guess they really sweat that plane out, getting it on the ground. And most of the time, we had a little island of Pianosa that if we couldn't complete our mission, we had those bombs. We dropped them on Pianosa. They would give you that target to do so that you wouldn't have indiscriminate dropping them any place. Drop them there. And that's off the spur of it, enough that it wouldn't do anything.
Later on, they came out with Tagalias. Did you have any Tagalias in your group? Tagalias eliminated the bombardier. All he did was...
By the time I was through, my last raid was the end of January, 45. At that point, I don't think I never even heard of that until recently. You get it in the paper and somebody's talked about it, but I don't think that any of that was occurring by the time I went through.
Now, what was your worst mission?
What was your question?
How you want to call the worst. My most trying mission was when we landed on Viz. When we were shot up and we lost altitude. We were in pretty bad shape. We had to go in and land there at Viz. So that was my most trying mission. In your our most concerns, the raids that would strike fear into your heart, there you were going, had to be between Vienna, Munich, Blackhammer, and Molesty. Some of the other raids, yes, they were bad, but they weren't as heavily defended and everything. And we were fortunate by the time I was doing a lot of my flying, is the Luftwaffe was not a major force any longer. Their heyday was over.
Partly because of the oil?
Pardon?
Was it partly because they didn't have the oil? Because you would deny them some of their oil?
I don't think so. We recognize in the Battle of Britain, they lost a hell of a lot of German aircraft.
A lot
And
of
pilots.
missions, too.
Huh?
And a lot of missions, too.
Yep. Oh, yes. Yep.
So they were flying young teenagers at the end of the war.
With 10 hours of flight time.
Don, did you see the Messerschmitt aircraft with the jet engines? Even when you were, toward the end of the war? Did you see any of those?
I didn't see any planes with jet engines.
They came in just after.
I think the first jets came in around April of 45. So when I was stateside, I saw a couple of jet engines, yeah.